the commuting time. It's an hour all day, every day, two each way. And I was like, I'm spending like 10 hours a week in the car. I was like, I am starting to lose life here. I'm in my 30s now.
There's not many people in the world who are known by just one name. We've got Arnold, we've got Beyonce, and now we've got Radmin. It was an absolute delight chatting to Radmin today. Some of the key takeaways for us, the fact that he admits he wants to make money. He would almost, to the extent he was saying, rearrange Maslow's hierarchy of needs. He's also got one of the strongest brands we know. And it really does bring him to life and help him stand out in what is quite a busy industry he's in. So stand by and get ready to speak to Radmin. But before we do, pretty please give us a subscribe. Let us know in the comments what you think of Radmin and his strong brand. And feel free to share this with your friends. Right, let's go.
Don't swear.
No.
Sake.
That's recorded. Right, okay. Shall we do this?
Do you want to take a breath, darling?
No, I'm fine.
Do you need to loosen up?
No, I'm all right, actually. But the only thing I wish I'd done is tidied up my moustache before my beard with my beard trimmer before I came on.
Rich has got his game on.
Okay.
Yeah, yours looks lovely.
Yeah.
I've got a big right. Let's get going because I've got a big question for you, Radmin, that I'm going to come to. No, I might. We'll see. Anyway, right.
Last one.
Do you need to take a moment?
No, it's the podcast cough.
No, I got a cold actually.
I can't cough for half an hour because it sounds awful on recording, so I get it out at the beginning and then it's fine.
Right, Emily, let us know when we can start.
You can start.
Right, we're going to mention that as well. Okay, Radmin, welcome along. We are super excited. Not many people come with their own, one-word name like Arnold.
I know. I can't believe you went in with Radmin.
Radmin, yeah, or Richard. Yeah, but all right, Radmin, Richard, or Radmin. Your choice before we get going.
Well, you guys always know me as Radmin anyway, so we may as well just stick with Radmin.
Yes.
I call you Radmin all the time. So, Radmin, welcome along. We're going to start with our big question we always start with, which is, do you know what? What are you trying to achieve?
Ooh, that's quite big, isn't it?
It's always a massive one, and it always leaves people with that exact face going, oh my goodness. And that can be business or personal, general life as well. It doesn't have to be specific business.
So we're big on kind of, we might actually let you talk in a minute. So we're big on kind of working with others, teaming up with companies to help them achieve what they're trying to achieve, right? So we're curious, what are you trying to achieve?
So for me, it's a mixture of business and pleasure in that, Simon Sinek, who'll start with your why.
Mm-hmm.
That's half a load of rubbish because ultimately, we all want money. If I could, I would sit doing nothing all day, every day, or put my roller skates on, or walking the dog, or something like that. But you can't because you need money. The old Haslow's hierarchy of needs. It's like air, shelter, money. Maybe money needs to go second because how can you afford the shelter otherwise?
Well, so
it's
with the boys,
not beach hut anymore, is it?
No, with the Boy Scout in me and the den building, the bushcraft, you could go into the woods and build a den, right?
You'd get arrested.
No, you wouldn't get arrested
under
the Countryside and Right Away Act.
Can't do it in England and Wales.
Can't do it in Dartmoor anymore.
No, you can do it on Dartmoor. It's been overturned. For those who don't know, sorry, Emily and I are well into our outdoorsy stuff. Hello, scouts and all that. So we know a bit about this. But you are right, actually, Radmin. And we also find there's quite a big difference in the answers between the men and the ladies we've had on this so far. And if I'm honest, mine would be the same as yours. I think it would just be money. What am I trying to achieve? Money. The bit I was about to answer for you and figured I should probably just ask you, what about the fun side of that, the time side of that? Because it isn't just as simple as earning money, because it has to come with other things that meet your needs, surely.
Yeah, of course. I mean, it's for me, I've obviously spent a little bit of time thinking about this because I'm in my third year of self-employment, I think.
Yeah.
So, you sit in self-employment or, it's working on yourself, a freelancer, whatever you want to call it. A lot of my time is spent sat in this house on my own, just doing work, occasionally on the phone to clients, occasionally, all the old, emails, that's it. But
Sorry, can you just do that one more time?
Can we all do it? The
that
International
used to
Sign
be my job
Language for
description.
typing.
So, in my previous role, someone said, "What do you do?" I said, "Oh, just typey, answer phone." But yeah, so I spend a lot of time on my own, and it's hard on your own when you work for yourself to be motivated to do the work that you need to do for other people, that people are relying on you for the money, so that you can live the life you want to live.
It is.
A fine example of the time thing and the money thing is that last year my daughter was in year 6 and she had her final leavers play, and obviously they do a morning slot, don't they? And then they do a evening slot. So I was like, I don't really fancy the evening slot. End of July, really hot hall, watching a load of 11-year-olds do a performance of Grease.
No way. Doesn't sound
So
like
I
fun
went to the
to
morning
me.
one because I can.
Yes.
And there was like half the amount of people that would have been there, or even a quarter. And it was great because I didn't have to worry about that whole sweaty hall thing. The performance was okay. It was a load of 11-year-olds doing Grease. So
Can we just recap that entire point? The reason you're self-employed freelance is that you don't have to sit in a sweaty hall. I think that's an amazing reason to go self-employed. But in the serious note of that, and I think Alan would agree with that, is that we went self-employed, worked together on our business mainly because how many dads as well can say they've done every single school run for we've had, or Lydia Rose is in her 7th year of primary school now, but he's been there pretty much every single day for every single school run by choice because he can, and not having to balance work and having to go, the meeting's then, so I can't do that. I'm stuck in a car driving down the M3, whatever that is in terms of employment. It's about being able to make that decision to fit it around your life and still be present for those moments.
So then if we come back, because I quite like this, and I sometimes think, although we all accept it's money, we don't always put it first or second or third, is where it is. But I still think, like, if you want to make money, you can buy stuff from Alibaba and sell it on Amazon or eBay, right? You still need to set it up, but ultimately you could do that. So then what makes, and I'll happily admit, I think I have just admitted this, gold money as well. So what makes us want to do it not in, and I'm going to say the simplest way, but then we have to agree that is the simplest way to make money, and it may not be. But what makes us do it not in the simplest way possible, which is old school buying and selling something, I believe, anyway.
What makes we're all good at different things, aren't we? We can't all be good at buying and selling things on Amazon. If everyone did that, then we wouldn't be able to do it because no one would be buying anything on Amazon because you already have it in stock.
Well, I wouldn't be stocking Teslas and stuff. I'm thinking, buying rubber mats from Alibaba and flogging them on.
You've got a real obsession with rubber mats at the moment.
Well, I do, and I can come to that if needs be.
I mean, one point of my profession, and I'm sure yours is very similar, is when I'm selling my time, there's only so many hours I can sell without, extreme burnout or losing the will to live or losing where I'm up to. And so that is an a limited number of 40 to 70 hours a week, depending on where you want to put yourself. And once you've reached that at a set hourly rate, you can't go any higher. So you need something else to do. So I have looked at passive incomes, such as buying things on Alibaba, selling them via Amazon.
Or digital downloads, which is very popular on TikTok at the moment.
Well, yeah, making things on Canva and selling them on Etsy. But, and, perhaps down the line, I think, I've not leveled up to that point yet. I can, there's something down the line and, it's like you must be level, 39 to look at this map or something, Yeah. It's a bit like that. But, yeah, I mean, the thing, circling back, you all have to do something. You're all good at something, or we're all good at something. And, that famous Joker quote, or Heath Ledger's Joker was, if you're good at something, never do it for free. So if you're going to have to do something, which we all have to, well, some people don't have to. They inherit like millions and millions, and they don't.
I think normal in inverted commas.
You can't say normal 2023. You can't say normal.
Regular? Oh yeah, regular
Uh,
people listen. So yeah, we all have to do something.
those who identify as normal, they, we have to do something to earn money, to pay our rent, to pay our council tax, to blah 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 blah. So why not do something that you at least enjoy and you're good at? And for me, that is spinning other people's plates.
Hmm, I agree.
What got you to the point of spinning other people's plates? Have you always spun plates for other people?
No,
What have you, what, so what got you to where you are with Radmin
um,
right now?
I will be very brief because otherwise you guys are not going to be able to get the kids from school.
Is it what?
Um,
Is it an encyclopedia?
yeah, it's like in Carter 98, but it's in a book form.
God.
Like retro. Hashtag retro.
Like, was that the better one in Carter 98, or was 95 the best one? Like,
Well, I would imagine 98 because 95 would have been similar time to Windows 95, and a first launch is never the best, is
didn't
it?
they
And
came in a box set, didn't they? Sorry, dog's trying to
they
escape.
did.
Go away.
That's all right. They did.
Um,
They did.
they came in like a box set, didn't they? It was in Carter 95 and
But that was everything in the
something else.
world.
Yeah.
This is about Windows. I mean, around that time, my mum and dad still had an Amstrad computer.
Oh, was
What,
it
when
not
Windows
Atlas?
95?
Was it not an Atlas or
Atlas.
something?
It was Atlas as well, yeah. But I always remember my best friend at the time, Gemma Spagagna. She was well posh.
Hello, Gemma.
Hi, Gemma. If
Hi,
you still
Gemma.
watch her. She's not Spagagna anymore, but I think her name's Gemma Salmon. Yeah, she was such a fancy pants because she was one of the first people to have in Carter. And then when they were doing their and it was
Sorry,
all,
you define fancy pants by them owning in Carter.
yeah. Would you not?
No, I see. I was building computers at 15 years old, which was 1995.
Enough about you. More about Richard.
Oh yeah, sorry.
Um,
Go,
Yeah,
Radmin,
tell
go.
us your
Oh,
story.
yeah, so
That's why
sorry.
we're here.
I completely and utterly took us off track there with my in Carter 95.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, so yeah, when I left school, I went to work for my grandparents in catering. They had a restaurant here in Weymouth, and then I did that for like 7 years. And that kind of I like to look back and think set me up with the whole spinning plates thing, because in a kitchen you've got 20 when you're in during service you've got 20 minutes to kind of turn someone's meal around, and there's various little aspects that have to all kind of come together to do that. And then obviously in 2012 had a little girl, and I was like, I don't want to do this anymore. She's going to go to school. How are we going to do that if we're both working, late mornings and then evenings? So I was like, well, what else am I good at? And at the time, I thought I was good at maths, and I thought I was good at accounting because I thought I was good with numbers. But having learnt now, I'm good at recognizing patterns.
Oh,
Ah.
I like that.
So I looked to do that, and then I left. Left the catering world. I started at in a company in Poole as a sales administrator in 2014 in July. I can't tell you the exact date. I've forgotten it. But and that was all kind of I got my interview. I got the job because in the interview. She said, what did you do before? I said, well, I worked in the kitchen. She said, what are you doing now? I said, I'm working at a fish and chip shop currently. And she said, and how's that going? I said, well, it's kind of like an in-between world between the catering and the normal world, because it's like you've got customer interactions, which you don't have when you're working in the back kitchen. But at the same time, you still are cooking and you're doing that type of stuff. And she said, do you think so? Like, as blunt as that. And I was like, yeah, I do. And she's like, okay, do you want a job? I was like, oh, okay. But I was quite willing to start at the very beginning, as an apprentice. And I was like 28, 29 then. So I was willing to go all the way back to the beginning. And she said, no, I'll give you a real job. I mean, I'll give you a full-time job. Cut that bit out. Um,
We're not cutting that bit out.
with
just so
with
you
with
know.
real money and everything. And I was like, yeah, okay. And so I did that for like, I started as a sales admin in there, and then it was an inbound sales supervisor or something, and then they gave me a little inbound manager title, a manager of myself. But I did borrow a team occasionally. But that was in
Well,
Poole,
endorse it.
up
Don't
the
do the.
road in Dorset. Yeah, in between you
Yeah.
and us,
Yes, very
or you
much.
and me. But
You hate that
that
joke.
that road is like an hour each way every day, no matter how you slice it. If I wasn't working there, or you go on a Saturday night, you can make it in half an hour. But
But not
that
rush hour.
commuting time, it's an hour all day, every day, each way. And I was like, I'm spending like 10 hours a week in the car. I
Yeah.
was like, I am starting to lose life here. I'm in my 30s now.
Dead time, isn't it? That
And
that
I was
car
like, what
time
can I
is
do
just
instead? I
dead
need to move
time.
closer. And then we touched on this before, but I had an accident. It was like a mixture of a sports injury with an accident where I broke my hip, like the head of it, snapped it off completely through like a series of unfortunate events. And the employer in Poole was lucky enough to pay me full pay
Wow.
while I was recovering. Weren't even interested in my sick note or anything. We'll put you on full pay, and then you can work remotely for a few weeks, and then you can come back. And then, so by the time it was all in, I think I was at home for 10 weeks. Then I had to go to work on crutches for 3 weeks. Luckily, I commuted with someone else because I couldn't drive. But while I was doing that, I was thinking, what if I was ever in a situation where something happened to me again, and I didn't have such a nice employer? What was statutory sick pay, like £97 a week or something?
It's barely
And
Yeah,
anything.
crazy
Barely
stuff.
anything.
I
Yeah.
couldn't even afford my rent with that, as I'm sure many people can't. But so that started the cogs, of what am I going to do in the future. And then a job came up in Dorchester, and it was for working as a service advisor. Bearing in mind, I was working in customer service ish, a service advisor at a motorbike place, a BMW Motorrad service center. So I was like, motorbikes, plaid shirts, beards, t-shirts with logos on, think Gas Monkey but motorbikes. I was like, that is the life for
A
me.
bit of Richard Rawlins.
Yeah, that was me. I was like, yeah, I am going to be Richard Rawlins. I'm going to get into the Auto Trader, but I'm going to do motorbikes instead.
Yeah.
And then I went there and it was awful.
Oh no.
It wasn't like the customer, I was used to like, oh, I'm sorry about you. I'm sorry to hear that you've had a problem. Let's fix it for you. Bish bash bosh, done. Be with you tomorrow. It was my motorbike's broken. I spent 25 grand on this. What are you going to do? Picked up the phone one day early, 5 to 8. I thought I'll just turn the phones on. Some man's on the phone, calls me the C word.
Oh no.
No, technically, did he call me the C word or the sales manager the C word? Either way, 5 to 8. You don't really want to hear the C
Bit
word.
early in the morning for that. Yeah.
Bit early. You know,
Not on you.
but everyone hated me. Everyone hated me in that job. The technicians hated me because I was like, when's this going to be ready? The customers hate you because you're charging money. The boss hates you because you're not charging enough money. The parts team hate you because you haven't ordered the parts in time. Uh, who else is there? Everyone hates you. Anyway,
Someone will hate you in your way. Now, sorry, there's a couple of points in that part I'd like to just touch on.
Yeah.
First of all, when did motorbikes become £25,000? In my head, like when I was young, I think £5,000 was an expensive motorbike, and I don't think I've looked at them since. So
well,
that's
the BMW R1250 GS Adventure.
I'm aware of said bike actually.
They're about 28 grand, I think now, fully
Wow,
loaded.
and that's the sort of thing Ewan McGregor would have ridden around the world before he rode an electric bike.
You did ride those back in 2005. Was that Long Way Round and then Long Way
Something like
Down?
Richard, your date recognition is incredible, by the way.
I
It's
told
because he
you
recognises
patterns.
patterns.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Incredible.
shall I tell you briefly the pattern thing? Because I'll be
Yeah.
like, yes, that year. I'll be like, oh, a song. If you said like Barbie Girl, then I'll be like 1997. Because I remember I was in first year of high school. We went on a trip to Menai, and the girls wanted to sing that on the karaoke night.
Oh,
Nice. So it's like the pattern of the association.
Yeah, that's it. So it's like,
Nice.
incredible. To spend a day in your brain. A
you
day
wouldn't
in
want to.
your
It's
brain.
exhausting.
Yeah, that's like mine. We're quite similar, actually, you and I.
So motorbikes, £25,000. Yeah, the ones that Ewan McGregor and Charlie Borman used on their 2 trips, but obviously newer ones.
Yeah.
And it's surprising how quickly they go wrong, even if they're brand new.
Mm.
So, but to combat that, the boss did then go with Royal Enfield. Your £5,000 brand new bike. But people didn't really like that. The BMW people were like, oh no, we don't like Royal Enfields. Oh no, that's cheap and horrible and nasty. But there you go. Bygones, eh?
So, bygones. The other thing I was going to pick up on, and I wonder if this is quite relevant to a lot of people who now own their own business, is the fact that you said you were in a role where everyone hated you. So I was in break fix for a few years. People came to us when their stuff was broken for us to fix it. So it was a negative, unhappy situation from the outset. And yes, you could put the positive spin on it and go, well, it's my chance to make it better. Or you could realize, a bit similar to you, that everyone hates you every day, and it takes quite a lot of effort and brain power to kind of stay there every day and keep building.
But going back to what you said there about the team at BMW there, and you are a small cog in a massive machine. And I remember we had an interview with Laura Bean on a similar thread with that, didn't we?
Yes.
About the fact that she struggled in her career of a place that shall not be named, a well-known hardware store.
I couldn't think. I nearly said it. I was like, oh.
Ooh. But the same thing was actually she's bloody good at her job and what she was doing in her job, and really enjoyed and had the passion for that element of her copywriting. But actually it was the fact that it was the oppressive nature of the wider office and the wider teams, and the fact that she was always coming home with that feeling of dread that she just didn't like that place to work. And that's a real motivator to kind of get yourself out of that situation. And I think what you said earlier about your previous employer there, how I suppose rare it is to have such a good company culture that makes you feel $1 million, and actually their intention there is to make you the very best you can be, and plumbing all those resources. And going back to the sick pay there, if you get an employer who believes in you that much, who's going to go, actually, let's get you back to fighting fit level first, that's like gold dust.
Yeah, they were good.
So Rich,
I couldn't do with the.
Yeah, Karen,
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt then.
It's okay.
They were great, and they were all about not community. Continuous development and looking after their staff and things like that. But that hour in a day, hour in a car all day, 2 hours in a day.
That was my thing. The time spent driving, I couldn't deal with it.
Back to the BMW place, which it was not a dealership. You're not allowed to call them dealers because that was associated with drugs.
Okay.
Retailers. So they that's a good bit to get retailers.
Right.
Yeah, so they, that was a small family business too, but part of a bigger network of the BMW Motorrad scene. But and they weren't bad people. I liked working with the lads. Now, one of them, I speak to him nearly every day because he set up as business at the same time as I did, or went full time self-employed at the same time as I did. But it was the customers, when you're browbeaten every day for however long, a couple of years, you're just like, and the ironic thing is that I didn't leave because of the customers. And in fact, when my two colleagues were in a bit of a bad spot, I was actively looking for other employment. And I had a job interview on a Monday, because that was one of our days off. And I was messaging my colleagues on a Saturday night with a few beers, and they were sounding in a bad place. They were like long-term people there. One was 25 years or something, the other was 13 years. And I was like, these boys need me. So Monday morning, I cancelled my interview, and I stayed for them.
Wow.
And then not long after that, COVID hit. But while I was doing that, the repaired hip had been going downhill. And I knew it was going downhill, and I knew that I was going to have time off to have an operation. So I was thinking to myself, back to my previous employer, what if? So I was like, well, what could I do from home with a laptop, lying in bed, unable to walk? And a few Google bits, and come up with this virtual assistant thing. And I was like, interesting. So I did a little bit of research. Then I found out that someone in Dorchester, so 7 miles from me, as the crow flies, not by road.
It's important.
She was already doing it, and she was setting up like an agency thing. So I spoke to her, and I went with her to get the foundations laid, So I did that without telling my employer, and just set it up on the side. And then I managed to procure, I think that was February 2020. But then, obviously March we had COVID, and we all got furloughed in the first lockdown. And part of the thing was you can't do any work. And it was a bit ambiguous as to whether you could work for yourself. And my boss obviously didn't know, so I couldn't ask him.
Yeah.
But then, yes, so then it was started. And I think I got my first client in August. But then in December of that year, the boss decided to close the business up.
Oh
Um,
wow,
it,
well, it saves you a job then,
well,
really,
it
doesn't
did
it?
kind of. They say when you go self-employed, you're usually pushed. You
Mm.
don't jump, and as it happens, it was so much of a surprise that I spoke to the boss because I got a date for my operation because I had to have the hip replaced. I waited a year on the waiting list. Um, I was basically dragging my leg around behind me. That's how much fun that was. But
Oh wow.
I got this phone call. You're in 2 weeks' time. So I went to the boss and I was like, boss, and he's like, yeah. I won't tell you his name. And I said, I've just had the call. He said, that's fantastic news, Richard. I'm so pleased for you. I said, listen, and it's sick pay, blah, blah, blah. We're talking about partial furloughs and on a furlough rotation and stuff. He's like, don't worry about it. I will furlough you for the whole entire time you need. I was like, what a dude. Not full pay like the last lot, but because it was furlough, so it was like three-quarters pay, but better than statutory sick pay. Two
Yeah.
weeks later, he closed the doors
Oh
just before
no.
Christmas, 3 days before I was due for major surgery. So when he did that, my first thing was I'm having major surgery. I've got to not have COVID. I'll sort this out later. And we had to go
Mm.
to
Yeah.
the government and get our what we were owed and stuff like that because he'd wrapped it all up that way. But then I had a choice: do I continue my small business journey but go full time, or do I go and find a job and probably end up in the same situation that I've been in for the last two jobs? And so we went with option A, and we're here now.
Amazing.
There's so many things you've just said in the last couple of minutes. I don't
Yeah.
think I can
What are you
unpick
going
it
to
all.
clutch onto? Pick
Well,
on.
first thing is
Pick from, not pick on.
coming way back to again to your first employer and that first scare with your first accident and realizing that it's a scary time and your destiny can change in an instant. And if you don't have the employer like that one to support you, where are you? But also the whole, we never jump. We are all pushed. We all put our hands up. We were pushed into self-employed. You were
Well, I was pushed. Technically,
yeah.
technically, you left.
Well,
I was pushed.
I was at risk of redundancy. Alan was made redundant. I was pregnant with baby number 2 at the time when we decided to leave with that, and actually it was the work life, a bit like you, the work life balance of travel and being in an office and not being able to be there for our, at the time, 2 children was enough for me to go, something needs to change. But I think everything you've just been, it's about future proofing your life, isn't it? And being able to put the things in place, even if being a virtual assistant, personal assistant, shopkeeper, online shopkeeper, whatever that is for you, even if that's not necessarily your main career choice, not like you as a 17, 18-year-old go, do you know what, when I'm older I want to be, but it's about allowing yourself an opportunity to make sure that when everything hits the fan, if it hits the fan, you are going to be okay.
Mm.
And actually, when you come back to what you're saying about your daughter in her year 6 play, then allowing yourself to be able to do those things that aren't compromising your decisions to have a family, to not have to be in the car for 10 hours a week and all that kind of stuff, that's really important. And in some ways kind of thankful that you did get let off in terms of him closing the business, but also how scary that can make you feel when something like major surgery is looming.
Yeah. Question: if you'd have chosen option B and gone and got another job, do you think you would be doing Radmin, lifesaver right now, or do you think you'd still be employed?
Uh, it's difficult to say because you never know what actually would happen because you never took that road.
Of course.
But I'd like to think that I probably would have just kept the virtual assistant thing going on the side, because my ultimate aim was to be in business for myself. One thing I'm
Yeah.
sure you guys realized when you got made redundant, or nearly did, that something in you changes. You realize that you only want if something happens to you, you want to be able to responsible for yourself. So, you can't, you want to control your own destiny.
Mm.
Which is, you could, you can have, your boss can tell you all you want. Oh yeah, we're going to go into deep hibernation. We're going to go on to, this furlough leg thing where you'll have 2 weeks on, 2 weeks off, and then ultimately, your job's gone. And then you're like,
Mm.
at the moment, what they're talking is someone on the news said something like you're one paycheck away from being homeless. And
Pretty much.
when you work for yourself, I don't know if maybe it's not true, but it feels a bit like you're more in control.
Hmm.
You think, well, what am I going to do now? You've not got the big you've not got as much obligation in that one nest basket as you of a job. If
It's totally
for me,
true.
I've got what seven or eight clients, I think. And if one of them turned around tomorrow and said, "No, I don't want to use you anymore, Richard," I would be a bit like, "Oh, well, bad times, what happened? And I'm really sorry about that," or why? But at the same time, you just start advertising again. Got some hours available. Who
I,
wants them?
Do you know what?
yeah.
It's such a sorry, Alan. So it's such a true point, though. And I don't know if you've ever had it from people around you who are non-self-employed, but it's I don't think I could do that. I like the safety net of my job conversations and how, and we often get it. You're so brave going into self-employment, especially the two of us. We haven't got another income in terms of one of us having a full-time.
I think the polite phrase is we have nothing.
We have nothing. But on the flip side, and you've just hit the net.
Everything at the same time. So I thought
You,
I'd add that
you
in
hit the
case my
nail on the
parents are
head
listening.
there, Richard. It's the fact that your destiny is in the hands of your employer, and that plug can be pulled at any
Yeah,
time.
yeah.
They could restructure. They could, I bring us back to when we were in COVID, and we went through every single hole in the net. We didn't get any kind of funding. We didn't get any furlough. We didn't get any packages. We were just up the creek. But the motivation for the two of us going, well, we have to do something right now. We have to make money somehow. What are we going to do? Allows you that all important word of pivoting, if you need to pivot, to do whatever you need to do to get past that finish line, to get your bills paid every single month. So we have the ability to flex, change, go in different directions, add different services, go and do a bit of flipping on Alibaba if you want to. There's that flexibilities that you always know if you've got the right mindset and motivation, you'll get past the finish line. But when you're an employee, you are literally in the hands of your boss.
Yeah.
No, I thought you were interjecting then.
No. I was kind of I was going to. It was sort of same but different. It was the when I'm talking to people like my mum who have never had their own business, only ever been employed. They can't get their head past a fixed income every month. And it's like, no, ours changes. We can flex up, we can bring it down. Why? It's and if the poo hits the fan, you can go all guns blazing and everything else.
It's a prime example, though. We knew for a fact, mainly because of the patterns in the year anyway, plus the fact that we had 3 kids at home for the summer, we knew that our August was going to be quieter. We wouldn't be bringing in much revenue in over August, but we were aware of that. So with that in mind, we made sure that our May, June, July were as busy as we possibly could be to ensure that we could have that dip in that revenue when it came through. And it's okay to have that mindset because it would be very nice to have the same whatever pay packet every single month, but there are other ways of doing it.
Right. Yeah, go on, Radmin, because otherwise I've got questions for you.
But keep those questions to hand because I'll forget what I'm going to say. Otherwise, I'll be like, oh, I can't remember what I was going to say. So, with the whole salary thing, the safety net, you're brave going out on your own. When people say to me about that, I just remember a video I saw on the internet. It said a salary is a drug to make you forget your ambitions. And I'm like, yeah. And like people say to me, so how do you find being self-employed? I'm like, well, I like to compare it to this. When you do, if I want more money, oh no, yeah, sorry. If I do more work, my reward is more money. If when you're employed, you do more work, your reward is more work. You get most of the time you get the same money. Some bosses are nice and they'll give you a pat on the back and oh yeah, you've done a good job this month. Here you go, have a little bit extra. But the majority of the time, you just end up with someone else's job, and then they find that
true.
oh well, you can do that. If you do that 1.5 person's job, then that person doesn't need to be here. So when they leave, we won't replace them. You can do their half job, and they can do half their job. It was happened in the last job I worked at. When I started in the after sales department, there was 5 of us. When I left, there was 2 of us doing those 5 jobs. And
It's
yeah,
an incredible way they managed to do that. They slick in that team, but you're still just as
yeah,
stressed.
and I only had £4,000 more a year, I think.
Yeah, doing more work.
And as for doing another two and a half people's jobs or whatever it was, or one and a half, or 2 people's jobs. That's it. So I was doing 2.5 people's jobs.
Yeah. Yeah.
Crazy.
Here's the lesson. Everyone needs to go self-employed.
No, they don't, because it's not right for
It's
everyone.
not, and it really is. And I think there is a massive reason why there's such a small percentage of people who are going out alone with it, because it's a bit of hold on to that massive roller coaster. You've got to love the ride or hate the ride, and I quite enjoy the ride.
You know the ones who I think employment is okay for, and that, in my opinion, they have to do something that I would struggle to do. I believe it's the ones who have basically had kind of one career. So they started a job when they were kind of, especially people like firefighters and police officers, and they've started when they were like 18. They've done their 30 years or so, give or take, a bit more nowadays, and then they can leave, and they've earned consistently well, and they leave with a consistent, nice pension. If you can do those 30 years and you can find a role that you want to spend that time on, then I think that's okay. I would struggle doing that. I have enough problem sending an email every week because I find that too repetitive.
That's the difference between a job and a vocation.
No,
as well,
no,
though.
totally agree. Right, so hold on, a few things. We do need to slowly wrap up, Radmin, right? So because we want to keep this.
Talk to you for hours though. It's great.
I know. I could talk for hours. So first of all, I want to share. I was the same with you, and when I was commuting for my job, and I was a kind of an area salesy, managery type role for Geek Squad, and I'd be driving to Dover, to Plymouth, and all these things for sales meetings to motivate and G them up. And yes, I got a nice wage at the time, and I had a car and all these other things, but realistically, it had no benefit on my life other than making the person at the top richer. And I struggled with the time spent doing that as well. So I've got a couple of questions. Oh, I've lost them. I've got your LinkedIn profile up, right? So question 1 is, apparently you're an accomplished athlete.
I was an accomplished athlete before the aforementioned hip problems.
And how were you an athlete? What did you do?
I reckon I know the answer, but I don't want to get it wrong.
I've done various running races, triathlons, including 2 half Ironman.
Oh,
I didn't know. I feel I should know that because we have chatted over.
Do you know what? I can see it's triathlon because you've got to swim, bike, run.
Yeah, I even have it on my arm. Look.
You're just flashing your
you're
guns
just
now,
so
aren't you?
Fancy you are.
The sun's out,
Look
guns
at
out.
mine. Oh, there's.
Yeah. And my other one is, a bit of a compliment / question. Out of all the PAs and VAs we know a lot, and please, if you're listening to this and you are one we know, I'm not paying you a disservice, but I think Radmin has one of the strongest brands. You've got your own T-shirt, you've got very strong colours, you've got very strong wording. I'm making sure any branders are listening. I'm not just saying brands, a name and a colour, because we all know it's more than that. But I think you've got one of the strongest brands I know. Where's that come from? What made you decide to do that?
So my thing was, I wanted to have that strong brand when I rebranded from the licensee of the former name that I was part of in the former group. Because I was going out on my own, because I'm a male in what was predominantly a female vocation, role, job. I needed to stand out because I love peach, and I love pink, and I love fern green.
Oh, fern green, yes.
If you look,
nice
if you search virtual assistant, freelance admin agency, business support, any mixture of those words, they will be the colours that you will see. And so I want, with a white background, I thought, well, everyone has white background. Why not have black background? Start one. What's your favourite colour, Richard? Oh, I don't know. I quite like blue. the pink thing. People like pink. Pink's trusting, isn't it? Or is it blue's trusting? Blue's caring, I think. Anyway, so I
Don't
thought,
know.
well, what can we do with that? So I was like, literally, what's that? Like really bright blue, electric blue. That's it. And hot pink. Yeah, they sound like the colours for me. And I think you find is 77DDFF, and
Oh, he
I
even knows
can't I can't remember
his
the other
hex
one.
codes.
I struggle with
But
ours.
yeah, so I went with those, and I just mixed them up, and then I wanted it to kind of be, I wanted that whole Richard Rawlins vibe, from Fast and Loud.
Yeah.
The black t-shirts, the jeans, the whatever shoe. I tend to wear Vans, but Converse or cowboy boots if you want.
But
Um,
yeah.
but I
But once again, sorry, just because you're a VA doesn't mean you can't be a
no,
rock
that's
star,
it. And like
right?
I tried the whole
Yeah.
suit thing when I started, with the tie and the look at me, I'm a professional. And I was just like, it didn't work. I couldn't work out my voice. And then I tried the polo shirts and the trousers and the pointy shoes, and still I was like, you know,
From Cotton Traders, no doubt.
cotton traders, me? No, they weren't. I don't think they were Gildans. Yeah,
Oh. All
yeah.
right, nice.
But my my father-in-law, when I go out to my client meetings in my t-shirt and my jeans and my Vans, he's like, you should be wearing trousers. You should be wearing shoes. I'm like, why? I was like, it doesn't matter what I wear when I'm doing the work for them from my living room.
Yeah.
But that's the whole personal brand thing, isn't it? Rather, and it's an older fashioned view.
And going back to that world of employment,
Well, and that word professional, that's
it's
the sticking
it's
point.
the
The word
sticking point for so
professional.
many people because that's how it's always been done, and it doesn't have to be done that way. But honestly, I think Alan's already complimented. But I'm going to say again, your brand is so standout, and it always makes me smile. And I always recognise, even if I don't see your face on anything, I recognise when it's you posting on your socials as well. And it's really really amazing. I just love the roller skates and the 80s references and all that. It's awesome. So well done for coming up with that because you like the black and you like that little blue and you like that pink because
right.
ultimately you are. This again coming up to branding people and what your brand should reflect. You've got to love it. It's got to be a part of your personality. And if it's something that you get joy from, then you're going to spread that joy in your messaging and talk about that outwardly anyway.
There is. We're the same with our yellow, and I've got a sea of yellow t-shirts and everything else. But there is this kind of something like you're putting on a. By the way, sorry, I've got to say, Emily's just pulled my hand down. This goes out on video as well as
I know.
audio, right?
He keeps doing this. He keeps
Well, no, that was my thinking. That was me thinking. I was
I normally
scratching
do
my beard.
this,
Yeah.
but and this, and
Yeah. No, I'm a moustacher.
Yeah.
Yeah. There is an element of superhero, right? Putting on the outfit. And I think if it was a shirt and tie, I wouldn't feel as superhero-y about the uniform. But because it's yellow or black with yours and specific to us, our personalities and our brands, I feel it's very much more, I'm donning my superhero outfit ready to go and work on my Maslow's hierarchy of needs, second place money, But to do full circle. Right, should we wrap up with the final question?
Final question.
Final question. It's on me, I believe. So, Radmin, look, absolutely love this, and I just love the way your life story has kind of weaved its path to where you are today, and that's what we're fascinated about. It's like, why are you here today? And I think we've got a massive sense of that. But if you had the opportunity to go back to your younger self, and you didn't go much further than 28 or so. Oh, yes, you did. No, you talked about your parents' restaurant and everything. But if you could go back to your younger self and say something, what would you say? What tip would you share, or words of encouragement or whatever?
what tip would I share?
Don't break your hip.
Hold on for this.
Standing by, everyone.
Count me down. I don't know. I mean, it's tough, because I think one thing that I would do if I could do my time over again, and I did have a conversation about this with a long-term employee and former director of a company, started at the bottom, worked his way all the way up, stayed for however many years. And I said, if I went over again, I would jump jobs every 6 months or so. For two reasons. One, to gain as much experience in life as I could. And two, because those people that usually jump for more money. So, you do a little bit of work and you jump because that job's slightly higher paid. But you've got the experience because of the job you've just done for 6 months, a year, 2 years, whatever. For me, I've always been in roles for, 7, 3, 2, longer periods of time. Um, but you don't, as we said before, you don't get rewarded. You get the annual pay rise if you're lucky. You don't jump thousands per year like people do when they swap jobs. But some people, it's frowned upon on their CV when they've only worked somewhere for 6 months. Well, what did they do there? No, what's that missing there? They're missing 3 months there. What did they do?
Yeah. Why are they only being employed for 6 months?
Yeah,
What's
yeah.
wrong?
But I really, we've literally this morning watched a Stephen Bartlett quote on online somewhere.
It was on Virgin Radio. We watched it on YouTube.
And he
my
was
favourite
talking about
platform.
the 5 things that you should consider when getting your job, and then it was the buckets, wasn't it? It was like
five buckets
five
or something.
thing.
And the first 2 were.
It's knowledge. It was about knowledge.
Was it knowledge and skills?
Knowledge and skills. And exactly what you just said there, the fact that you
Google
change
it while we're
every
doing
6 months allowed you to get more knowledge and allow you to grow and develop and change. And then with that comes the money as well, because ultimately you are making yourself a better human by filling those 2 buckets first before you worry about everything else around you and your reputation. I think one of them is reputation.
Knowledge. So Stephen Bartlett's 5 buckets. I don't know if he owns this model, but it's where we heard it. Knowledge and skills, 1 and 2, followed by network, resources, and reputation. And he basically says 1 and 2, no one can take away from you, right? No one can affect, no one can take it away from you. And if you do 1 and 2 knowledge and skills correctly, which is what you were just alluding to, then ultimately that affects 3, 4, and 5, which is network, resources, and reputation. So if you move around, growing your knowledge and building your skill base, that will grow your network, your resources, and your reputation. So yes.
And it's just a bit more interesting, isn't
Yeah.
it?
Variety spice. I love change.
You got to make it fun as well. That's my thing is, things can get tough. Things can get tough, can't they, as a self-employed person? When you put a fun spin on it.
Yeah.
Like I don't subscribe, but I use a particular program that and I to manage my workload. And when you complete a task, a little unicorn or a little narwhal jumps across the screen like, "Whoa, you've completed it!" And there's things like that. Okay, can I do that in 7.5 minutes? Ooh. And that's how I keep going every day. Is like I make it fun and play little games with myself.
You have to.
Before we finish, I feel I want to share so I'm the same, right? It comes under adventures need not be complicated, but same as fun need not be complicated. I can have an adventure driving a different road to school. So I can engage that giddy, childlike, fun excitement just by taking a different road in the car. So like you and
if you go one way though, do you come back the same way, or do you have to you can't come back on yourself?
So by default, we do need to wrap up. By default, I like to do a circle. I find there and back very stressful, including on a run. Like if I'm on a there and back run and I have to do them occasionally, I don't like it.
Boys, can I just say, we were aiming for a half an hour podcast. We're hitting 50 minutes right now. Can we please just wrap up? We'll talk about the circles another day.
All right, we might get you back for part 2. Or we do the Radmin and Alan show at some point.
Oh, the Radmin and Alan
sounds
show.
Good, though. The setting behind me may not be quite so good because it's quite a squeeze and there's wires everywhere.
Well, I love it. I love everything. I've enjoyed this. That's it's good. The time's gone flying by.
Yeah,
so
it
we are
really,
just
really
going to
has.
stop and say thank you.
Put a fork in me. I'm done.
Richard, Radmin, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you very much.
Thank you for having us. All right, take it easy. Bye.